Brazil, the host country of COP30, is a country rich in natural resources, biodiversity, and potential. But it's also a country facing complex social and economic challenges in the race towards sustainability. Today marks the launch of a groundbreaking new research from Earth for All, which uses integrated systems of modeling to connect the dots between land use, energy, trade, and social outcomes, all to guide transformative climate action in Brazil and beyond. It's my great pleasure to welcome on stage Izabella Teixeira, the former Minister of the Environment of Brazil. And you have another title, I think, as well.
The co-chair of International Resource Panel.
The International Resource Panel, hosted by the United Nations Environment Programme. We have Sandrine Dixson-Declève, the Executive Chair of Earth for All, with many other titles. I don't know, you might want to throw another one in, just in case.
I'm the Honorary President of the Club of Rome and the new co-founder of the Systems Transformation Hub in Brussels.
Thank you very much indeed. And Nathalie Spittler, Earth All lead modeler, I think. It's got down here as modeling lead, and I thought it was going to be a fashion show. So I think lead modeler is probably better, yeah. Nathalie, I'm going to come to you first. You have the lead in the modeling of this new report. Tell us about some of the most interesting findings.
Yes, thank you. So just to say, the modeling is very different from previous models that have been done because it actually integrates the social and the biodiversity aspects that you mentioned. And what we found is that if Brazil goes down a too little too late business or decision-making as usual scenario, there's a huge risk of polarization, whereas if Brazil takes transformative action, actually, it activates a feedback, a virtuous feedback that can actually get us into a transformative system, meaning that it can keep transforming and be resilient over time. And this is what we need, coming up with the adaptation challenges we will face through climate change, but also the mitigation challenges that are still ahead of us.
It was put to me by two people from Brazil we had on the first show, that Brazil is a mirror of the world. It's a mirror of the world. It has prosperity like the global north has, but it has poverty like parts of the global south. And that trying to resolve those two tensions is quite interesting. Let's just move on to Izabella. Drawing on your experience as the former Environment Minister of Brazil, what are your reflections on this new report? Why is it important?
Let's see. I think that three key points must be observed. The first one, as you mentioned, we are connecting the dots. There's a non-linear developmental perspectives. We need to understand how real life is. And real life is not managed based on silos. Real life to connect things. Okay, if I'm a farmer, I know the needs about infrastructure. If I'm poor people, I know the needs about hunger and how farmers could produce low-cost food, for example, and how you need energy to provide low costs, so incoming low prices. These dynamics to connect things and the real life, it's very important, and I think it's really an asset from the report. Based on a country, as you mentioned, we have the diversity of realities in a huge countries. What's happening here in the Amazon region is not to have in the south of the country. Okay, so it's very important to be flexible and understand that we face inequalities, social and environmental ones, and how Brazil, that has assets, environment, economic, and peace assets. We have peace in this country with our neighbors more than 150 years. So how can you use this, consider the new ways to approach development, and climate change is part of the equation. My second point is that, okay, we are in a different age today. Okay, 10 years later, Paris Agreement, and I had Brazilian delegation during Paris Agreement negotiations. We have a different world, and nature changed. My perspective is that the world is updating, like running, don't know yet what's happening.
Like a computer.
Absolutely, like a computer. And when you have this modeling, we can also decouple things and connect things based on reality and transitions. And this is very good because you can share language in Brazil and with other countries. And my third perspective that, okay, if you go into climate solutions, you must be prepared to have another adults into the rooms, because we have not only private sector, but we have subnational players coming into climate governance. And climate is a long project. As a long project, we need to face governance and politics. This modeling could allow us to understand better the trends of politics, or climate politics, and the power politics, and coming internationally, the recession of Brazil to play issues like inequality, social and environmental ones, and also bring climate in the basis of to make sure that we can manage things that we are doing today. So it's really a good language to convince people, to mobilize people, not based on fears or tragedies, but based on really issues that we understand our reality, we understand how we need to change, how we need to be transformative, and how we should come together.
Okay. I think we'll come back to Izabella in a moment. Let me turn to Sandrine. This kind of links with the report as well, because it's about choices, isn't it? Bill Gates recently wrote an essay in which he contrasted investments in the green transition with investments aimed at lifting people out of poverty. He thus made it appear as if there were two separate issues, which sounds really a bit old-fashioned, actually. Your report presents a different picture.
Not only does our report present a different picture, our report talks about the truth on the ground. And we just recently heard actually here when we launched the report that equity is climate infrastructure. You cannot disassociate poverty from climate change or vice versa. We know that the world's most vulnerable are going to be hit the most by climate change, but we also know that across the globe, we will not be able to bring people on this journey unless we deal with inequality and poverty. We have seen that inequality and poverty has grown across a variety of different jurisdictions. You just talked about Brazil, but also within the United States, we have some of the poorest neighborhoods in urban development areas in the United States or in Europe. So this whole statement and report went viral, right? When Bill Gates actually indicated that this was a binary choice. No, this is a holistic choice. And it's not only a holistic choice, but it's what is going to enable us both to decarbonize and to make people thrive. Last point, today is Health Day as well. And I sit on the Pan-European Commission led by the World Health Organization on health and climate. We have so much data across the globe demonstrating the health impacts from climate change, not only in terms of the world's poor, but we will see more pandemics, we will see more airborne diseases, waterborne diseases, and all kinds of tropical diseases. We will see impacts on our health infrastructure, which is bad for the poorest, but also bad for everyone. So we cannot enter into a world where we are binary in our decision making. This is exactly what Earth for All says. Everything is connected. Now that complexity might be frightening, but what we show in our report is no, there are a variety of different types of solutions that we can bring forward that has a variety of different leverage points that enables us to get through these complexities and these wicked problems that also have been described in order for us to both decarbonize and to make people's lives better.
I think Christiana Figueres, who was speaking on the BBC, for those that don't know, she was one of the architects of the Paris Agreement, and my former boss said she understands why Bill Gates thinks binary because he's from the computer world. In the computer world, it's ones and twos, right? I can count up beyond 1 and 2, by the way. I can get all the way to 10. So, you know, that's a little bit of a joke, but I think it kind of puts it in place, really. Let's look at this wider issue then. This report's out. What are you hoping people are going to do with it? Because I have to say, there are still a lot of people out there, not just Bill Gates, and some politicians that think in ones and twos. How do you deal with it? Do you want to come on with that one?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And actually, a lot of models are in ones and twos, and our model is not in ones and twos. And I think this is very important, right? We are actually having a model that can grapple with the complexity we are facing. And this model is a first step in actually having a mindset shift from thinking in ones and twos towards a more complexity-focused mindset, from linear thinking to systems thinking. so bringing us really ahead in our way of thinking, will bring us ahead in our way of finding solutions, and actually will also accelerate the solutions implementation eventually.
Maybe I could just build on that and say that we are already having these conversations with governments. And what we're doing is we are joining the dots, exactly as Izabella said. The fact of the matter is the cost of inaction is much greater than the cost of action. We know now that we're actually going to have GDP impact. So we will see GDP go down at 1.5 degrees by 3% per annum. We will see upwards of 17 to 20% of GDP go down at 3 degrees. And why is this important? Because what we're trying to say is if you start to connect those dots, if you create buffers to GDP economic productivity, then you actually start to create resilience within your economies. And this is resonating. It's resonating in terms of a new movement called the Beyond GDP movement that is looking at very clear indicators that reflect all the holistic thinking that we brought forward. We now also, just ourselves, have translated this report into 5 different national jurisdictions. We're looking at how to do it at the state level and at the local level. We're having those conversations with politicians, and they're incredibly excited about the possibilities that we're showing of moving forward.
Izabella?
I think that I agree, but I'd like to highlight 2 things. The first one, nature changed, and you don't know yet how to manage this. After 1.5 overshooting, you know, as science makes it very clear that we are in a different context, and you need to understand how we manage ourselves, consider development, inequalities, and really vulnerabilities. So when we connect the dots and we explain that's a non-linear perspective in the rooms, this will make clear for us in climate policies and climate politics that we must act not only based on recommendations. This is very important because we are decoupling things and make sure which critical decision must be taken in a country like Brazil to change or to shift the needle. This is very important because it's not only what you have, what you need to have in the future, and this means that transition will probably gain a new dimension, political and economic and technological ones, and people will understand how complex it is to move from A to B. But we need to do this. This is why I think that Brazil is a really good case, because you can go with another countries around the world, sharing language, common languages, not only on problems, but on solutions. And this, in my understanding, how this report could make sure that you can go into climate politics and also climate solution. What this copy will provoke is this. We have climate solution into the rooms with fragmented dimensions. Probably we have different guides running. But country must know how to pack things and coming to make sure that we have no setbacks in the future, and you will step by step have the future as an ally.
I get a sense with this report that what is, in a sense, partly at the heart of this report is how do we bring the people along with this program called decarbonizing our planet and staying within the goals of the Paris Agreement. This is about bringing the people along. And if we're not smart, we're going to lose the people. And then those that have a bigger wallet, like some parts of the oil and gas industry and the agricultural lobby, may well get what they want, which is a status quo and no change. So how do we bring the public along in a way that they feel part of this journey and they want to be part of it, right?
Yeah. Can I just bring in one thought? Yeah, Nick, you're absolutely right. And so I think what's really important here is we're not naive, exactly as Izabella has said. We need to have the facts, the science, the proof points to show that this can be done. But we also have to have the narratives and the storytelling and transform this into a way so people can understand that this is the right way to move forward. We've just had a conversation with Izabella around populism, and Carlos Nobre, who's one of the top Brazilian scientists, who's also supporting this initiative, along with incredible people inside the Brazilian government, like Gustavo Westman, Tulio André, and others, have been in IGAPE, for example, one of the top institutes here. Everyone is working with us on this report because we wanted to make sure it was anchored in Brazilian thought leadership and science. But what this also does is it shows exactly what President Lula has been saying. This is the COP of truth. This is the COP of people. This is the COP of implementation.
Right.
And this report shows that is possible.
May I add a comment?
Yes, Izabella, and then we're going to go to
Very
Nathalie
quickly.
because she gets
Very
cut
quickly.
out
I
of
want
the
to say this is
conversation.
what you're allowed to have new generations on the stage.
Yeah.
Because you need new faces. You need new people driving solution. So I hope that you can move from Belém to the future. And this report allow people to understand the complexity to drive solutions. But please engage, lead, and let's convince the new middle class in the world to change. And probably will be less vulnerable, not more secure, but less vulnerable in short-term perspective.
Yeah. Nathalie.
Yeah, you said bringing people along, and I think from a modeling perspective, we also brought along, as Sandrine said, the Brazilian presidency, and that for me was a great surprise because usually modelers and the politicians or like presidency wouldn't talk as much, I assume, and this is, I think, the engagement we had from them, the interest we had, and the learnings they had during that process. I think that was a really good insight for me as well. So just showing that modeling doesn't need to be something that's happening only at the computer or that's only far out there, but it's actually something that can happen in a conversation. And I think this is one of the great success factors that we did have this modeling work in conversation. And that's, I think, a big way forward. And this is what we want to replicate. Like Sandrine said, we have done this in 5 countries, but I think this is a model that needs to be replicated.
Isn't one of the most beautiful things right now the fact that a solar panel is cheaper than fossil fuels by a margin that is so huge that suddenly people, even the poorest people in the world, if supported with a solar panel, suddenly have electricity, suddenly have a chance for education, suddenly have a chance for other things. We're not starting from ground zero. I suppose what I'm saying is we have moved the needle in some areas quite well. But it's a bigger challenge coming, of course. But we've gone some way down the road to what you're trying to deliver, I think.
Yes, but I'd like to remember you that solar panel means that you have a high technological development, and you probably will emerge a new dependence among countries because we are also shift the political power in the world. So observe this when you go to critical minerals agenda, resource security, etc., how the middle will be moving. Okay, that's why politics is complex. Okay, power politics is complex, and climate politics is also complex. We need to understand how the countries are moving and make sure that nature will be closer to us in bad climate solutions and not have nature alone or be additional pressure on nature. Because probably we have back the new colonialism, new extractivism in countries that are not prepared for this. So this is really critical to understand.
Somebody's going to get the last word here, but we're now 45 seconds over our time. But I'll give you a few quick seconds and then back to Nathalie.
Yeah, I think the last point I want to make is exactly to Izabella's point. We are not naive. In this report, we take into consideration the big geopolitics. In fact, we also have the global model and the Brazilian model superimposed so we can understand. And I want to end with my 6 M's, okay? We are in a moment of monarchy, of materials, of minerals, of military, of morality gaps, and of media. And if you look at those 6 M's, that is what's driving the geopolitics. And this report is fundamental because it drives an edge through each of those M's. We have to remember, and we've seen it now across Europe and in the United States, that as we move more towards populism, towards authoritarian governments, and towards governments who are feeling now that heat, those fossil energy producers who actually have decided to go now backwards rather than forwards, who are not enabling the renewables revolution that makes absolute sense because it's cheaper. We have to talk about those power politics and what that's doing actually to this.
Well, when it comes to media, you have some media here that's right on your side. Nathalie, yes, you have the final word, Nathalie.
Yes, I think the most important point is really that modeling can not only help us understand reality, but it can also understand narratives, and it can help us understand how and where are the points where we can intervene with narratives and what are new narratives that we can create. So I think it's very powerful, this link between narratives and models that we are actually doing in Earth for All. I think this is one of the biggest powers that Earth for All has, this link.
We are going to come back on this report in 12 months' time at the next COP, and I want you all all three on the podium wherever we go, whether it's Turkey,
Yeah, don't know yet.
whether it's Australia, yeah. Whether it's, I see both the pavilions are side by side, right? It's like mud wrestling. And I want to find out what happened with this report. Thank you very much for
Thank you
being
very much.
with We Don't Have Time.
Thank you.